welcome to a new edition of Africa Today. In this edition of our program, we will talk about BRICS meetings as leaders of the BRICS nations, Brazil, Russia, China, India and South Africa are due to open a summit in Johannesburg on Tuesday, where they will weigh expanding membership as some members push to forge the bloc into a counterweight to the West. South Africa's President Cyril Ramaphosa said in an address ahead of the meetings that an unexpanded BRICS will represent a diverse group of nations with different political systems that share common desire to have a more balanced global order. More in this report.
Heightened global tensions provoked by the Ukraine war and a growing rivalry between China and the US have added urgency to a drive to strengthen the BRICS bloc, which has at times suffered from internal divisions and a lack of coherent vision. South Africa's President Cyril Ramaphosa said in an address ahead of the BRICS meetings in Johannesburg that an expanded BRICS will represent a diverse group of nations with different political systems that share a common desire to have a more balanced global order. Boosting the use of member states' local currencies is also on the agenda. South African summit organizers, however, say there will be no discussions of a BRICS currency, an idea floated by Brazil earlier this year as an alternative to dollar dependence. Ramaphosa will host Chinese President Xi Jinping, Brazil's Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva, and Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi from August 22 to 24. Russian President Vladimir Putin, wanted under an international arrest warrant for alleged war crimes in Ukraine, will not travel to South Africa and instead join virtually. Expansion has long been a goal of bloc heavyweight China, which hopes that broader membership will lend clout to a grouping already home to some 40% of the world's population and a quarter of global GDP. The leaders will hold a mini retreat and dinner on Tuesday evening, where they are likely to discuss a framework and criteria for admitting new countries. But expansion has become a point of contention. Russia is keen to bring in new members to counter its diplomatic isolation over its invasion of Ukraine. South Africa has also voiced support. India, which is wary of Chinese dominance and has warned against rushing expansion, has positive intent and an open mind, as the Foreign Secretary Vinay Quatra said on Monday. Brazil, meanwhile, is concerned that growing BRICS will dilute its influence. While a potential BRICS enlargement remains up in the air, the bloc's pledge to become a champion of the developing global south and offer an alternative to a world order dominated by wealthy Western nations is already finding resonance. Over 40 countries have expressed interest in joining BRICS. Of them, nearly 24 have formally asked to be admitted.
And we are joined over the phone by Mr. Raouf Ghaffar. He's a political analyst. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon to you, my dear.
Good afternoon, Mr. Raouf. So, amid heightened global tensions provoked by Russia-Ukrainian war and growing rivalry between China and the United States, how do you see the urgency to strengthen the bloc?
Well, I mean, the world in general is not very happy about the control,
yes,
I should say monopoly, the dominance of the United States over the world economy.
Yes.
Of course, we know the United States is the biggest economic power and the most powerful country, etc., but the world is not happy with the control they have. I'm talking United States over the world. So this is why they are trying, in a way, to get rid of that, or at least to form, as you said, a block of countries. Mind you, the BRICS represents almost 1/3 of the world population, and maybe around 20-25% of the GDP of the world. So, in itself, it's a very strong economic and political power. Of course, what they are trying to do is that they want to become not rival, but at least they want to put their foot down as far as the world economy is concerned and send a message to the United States. You are not alone in the world. We are here. We represent 1/3 of the world. We represent 25% of the world economy. We have to have a saying in what's going on. So it is important that the countries members of this bloc to strengthen the bloc itself and the ties between themselves.
Yes. So, sir, also, how would boosting the use of member states' local currencies, which is on the agenda of the bloc summit, impact their economies?
Can you repeat it, please? I haven't listened carefully. Yes.
Yes. How would boosting the use of member states' local currencies, which is on the agenda of the bloc's summit, impact their economies?
Well, I mean, I don't think that this was an idea,
Yes.
I think, from initiated by Brazil some time ago about having a currency, a united currency. But
Yes.
I don't think it will be discussed. But
Yes.
even though, I think it's a little premature to discuss it and to go into steps toward achieving this. But of course, just to lift, I mean, again, the monopoly of the dollar over the world economy is something that a lot of people aspire, a lot of countries, I mean, aspire to. They want to get rid of this, and we have seen, as a matter of fact, a lot of countries, particularly with the Asian superpowers, like China, like Russia, etc., we have seen a lot of protocols signed between these countries and others, accepting the local currencies as a means of exchange and a means of economic trade. So it is, of course, if achieved, it will represent a big threat to the United States and to the dollar in particular.
Yes.
But once again, I think it is a little bit too early to discuss it, and in my humble opinion, it might be just brought up as a subject on the agenda, but it will not be discussed at depth at this stage.
So, sir, also they are expected to weigh expanding the membership as some members push to forge the bloc into counterweight to the West. How do you see this move?
Of course, I mean, they, as I said, present this as a big part of the population and economy of the world. If they grow bigger, it is better for the bloc and for the countries joining the bloc. But I understand that there are some restrictions about joining the bloc. So not any country can join except if they are not indebted to any financial institution, if they have no loans or grants from the world. I mean, they have to have very strong economies that are not depending on any loans or facilities coming from anywhere else. But once again, yes, of course, the countries of the bloc look forward to more and more countries joining in, as long as they abide to the criteria of joining. This will give the bloc more and more strength, and will give it more and more power on the economic level, of course, and on the political level from the other side, of course.
So, also, sir, if we talk about over 40 countries have expressed interest in joining BRICS, of them nearly 24 have formally asked to be admitted. Do you think that the BRICS group is now attractive to many countries?
I'm sure it is, especially with the countries that have economic ties with the Asian powers. As you said, 40 countries want to join. Only a dozen are submitted official maybe applications to join. They have to meet the criteria, of course. And I think it is for the benefit of the bloc to extend the base of membership. And again, it will give the bloc more and more power, as long as they meet the criteria. I don't think they will compromise on their criteria. They will stick to it to give more and more power and strength. But as you said, the fact that 40 countries request to join means that they feel that this bloc represents something substantial on the economic side, and they want to join in and benefit from being part of this big alliance.
Also, Cairo has requested participation in the bloc's bank. How would the step impact the Egyptian economy?
I mean, definitely it will be a positive impact. First step to join the bank, to participate in the bank, to make use of the facilities maybe offered by this bank from one side. And as we all know, Egypt has very strong ties with China and with Russia and with India, etc. So it is very important for Egypt to strengthen again its ties with these countries, and by participating or being member in the bank, it will make things easier and the economics exchange bigger, and it will be directed into the development of our economy and the growth of our economy. So I think it is a very positive step and a move that we will see the positive impact very, very soon when we join.
So, sir, do you expect them to adopt any recommendations or the expected recommendations from these meetings?
Well, I think they will again, if they want to increase the number of countries to join the bloc, and this is a very private and personal opinion, they will have to maybe get a little lenient on the criteria. So if they want to accept a country, maybe they would accept a country with less strictness as far as facilities and loans. I mean, probably they will start to accept countries that are economically promising and strong, but they might have some debts here and there in order to give a bigger strength again to the bloc. So my opinion is that they want to, of course, strengthen this alliance, and only by admitting new countries this will happen, and they have to compromise a little bit, in my opinion, for how to admit new countries with them.
So, sir, grouping already home to some 40% of the world's population and a quarter of global GDP, how do you weigh its importance as an introduction of a new economic bloc, or rather world order?
I mean, sooner or later, things will change. And again, although this is not to the liking of the West, but this bloc will represent some rivalry to Egypt, to the United States, I'm sorry, and maybe in a few years we will see that the worldwide economy is not shifting, but at least is becoming bipolar instead of one pole. And in my, again, opinion, this is for the better of the whole world in general. And we are, as Egyptians, and myself, I'm encouraging this bloc to grow, because we are really tired from the way and the behavior of the United States as far as the worldwide economy is concerned. And I'm sure that this will be very beneficial for all the countries that join this grouping.
So, sir, how do you see the Russian interest in Africa?
It is obvious. Africa is the future.
Yes.
Africa is a young continent full of resources, full of wealth, and that was either not exploited at all or very badly exploited by the West. I'm sorry to say that, and it was about time to look elsewhere. Russia is very interested. We have seen summit meetings between Russia and Africa once and twice, and of course China is following suit. But the interest in Africa is something very positive for both Russia and Africa, and I'm sure that there is a lot of cooperation that can happen, and Africa can benefit from whatever Russia can offer as far as maybe know-how, maybe financing, maybe products, and in the same time they can cooperate in exploiting the resources that exist in Africa for the benefit of the two, Russia from one side and Africa on a win-win situation.
Yes, I'd like to thank you, Mr. Raouf Ghaffar, and the viewers, you are still watching our program Africa Today, and we move to reports from Sudan, and a global aid official urged the international community Sunday to provide more funds to help Sudanese citizens trapped by a month-strong military conflict between rival generals in the African nations. More in this report.
Jagan Chapagain, the Secretary General of the International Federation of Red Cross and Red Crescent Societies, said his organizations have received only 7% of the $45 million they appealed for to help those inside Sudan. The war pissed the military against the powerful paramilitary Rapid Support Forces. He said the needs are real and the Sudanese people need urgent support, urgent solidarity and urgent interest. Sudan was plunged into chaos in April when simmering tensions between the military led by Abdel Fattah al-Burhan and the RSF commanded by Mohammed Hamdan Dagalo exploded into open fighting in the capital Khartoum and elsewhere. The conflict has turned Khartoum and other urban areas into battlefields. Many residents live without water and electricity, and the country's healthcare system has nearly collapsed. This sprawling region of Darfur saw some of the worst bouts of violence in the conflict, and the fighting there has morphed into ethnic clashes with RSF and allied militia targeting ethnic African communities. Clashes also intensified earlier this month in the provinces of South Kordofan and West Kordofan. A rebel group attacked Kadugli, the provincial capital of South Kordofan, and clashed with the military, killing and displacing civilians. In Al Fula, the provincial capital of West Kordofan, fighting erupted for days between the military and the RSF before local officials helped stop the clashes. But government offices, banks, and the offices of the UN and other aid agencies were looted. More than 3.4 million people were forced to flee their homes to safer areas inside Sudan. Over 1 million crossed into neighboring countries including Egypt, Chad, South Sudan, Ethiopia, and Central Africa. Chapagain called for the international community to show the same solidarity with Sudanese people they showed last year when they rushed to help those who fled Russia's invasion of Ukraine.
And moving to Niger, and Algeria has refused a French request to fly over its airspace for a military operation in Niger. State Radio said Algeria opposes any foreign military action in neighboring Niger and favors diplomacy to restore constitutional order. More on the developments in Niger in the following report.
West Africa's main regional bloc, ECOWAS, has rejected a proposal by Niger's military junta to hold elections within 3 years, extending a political impasse that could trigger a military intervention if no agreement is reached following a July coup. ECOWAS and other international powers have been seeking diplomatic solutions to the July 26 putsch in Niger, the 7th in West and Central Africa in 3 years. But after several attempts for dialogue were rejected, the bloc, which has taken a harder stance on Niger than its junta-led neighbors, activated a regional force that military heads have said is ready to deploy if talks fail. It doubled down on its threat on Friday, one day before the junta eventually agreed to meet an ECOWAS delegation in the capital Niamey, suggesting new willingness to cooperate. In a televised address to the nation on Saturday evening, junta leader General Abdurrahmani Tiani said co-leaders remained open to dialogue. But he also said the junta would consult on a transition back to democracy within 3 years, echoing lengthy timelines proposed by other coup leaders in the region. ECOWAS Commissioner Abdel Fattah Musa said on Monday that the bloc's position remained clear. He said the outcome of ongoing informal discussions would determine whether ECOWAS would send another mediation mission to Niger. The bloc's reputation has been at stake since the recent string of coups eroded democracy in the region, raising doubts over its sway as junta leaders have clung to power.
And by that, dear viewers, we come to the end of today's edition of Africa Today. And stay tuned for our coverage to the BRICS meetings today in Johannesburg, as the meetings are due to open a summit on Tuesday where they will weigh expanding membership as some members push to forge the bloc into counterweight to the West amid provoked and heightened global tensions by Ukraine war and growing rivalry between China and the United States. The groups is expected to meet on Tuesday. And by that, dear viewers, we come to the end of today's edition of Africa Today. Thank you for watching.